del Fondo Monetario Internazionale, l'FMI, non di una politica semplice. Poi una riflessione sul cinema, che pur non avendo il tempo reale della TV e di internet, però ci sta informando molto di più su questi mesi. Grazie.
Is this question? Who's asking this question? You're asking a question. I see. You asked me two different questions. Okay, full speed. But you asked me two different completely questions, so I'm a little bit. Okay, you asked about the IMF. The IMF is not very popular in the countries that I travel to, 7 countries that I travel to, very much disliked because since the 1980s, there's a significant economic attrition in South America, and it's recognized as such by the World Bank. It's recognized by many economists. The IMF is considered a neoliberal Washington consensus organization and inimical to the interests of the people. Privatization measures, harsh measures. It climaxed essentially with a peso devaluation in Argentina in 2001, which was a significant event in the movie as described by Nestor Kirchner, who became quite a hero to many people. Argentina was one of the first, as was Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, to challenge the IMF in South America. And I gather from my friend Mark Weisbrot, who's here today, our consultant from the Center for Economic and Policy Research in Washington, D.C., Mark told me that the IMF is very much trying to make a comeback in South America. And Europe has invested quite a bit of money. They got $180 billion, am I right? $180 billion in the IMF in order to get their claws back into South America. This is a big issue. The IMF is a big issue. Tariq knows a lot more about it than I do, and Mark does. But number two, I don't know, your internet question is another question about, I cannot compare the internet to film. Film has a different meaning, a different poetry, a different power. The internet is very important, but it's also scattered, it's rumoresque, it's difficult to judge. I mean, there's so much information in the internet universe, how can there's so much, I don't know how much is accurate.
Prego. Please. I would answer this question to Mr. Stone. Mr. Stone, how do you feel about the recent protests against President Chavez?
I don't know much about it, but I gather they were not very popular. Not many people showed up. I don't know much about it. I was traveling, but I gather they were not very popular. Not many people showed up. President Chavez continues to remain very popular in Venezuela, and he keeps getting elected. And I think there's been 12 electoral processes in Venezuela that have been very accurately monitored and very fair. He remains popular. The poverty rate in Venezuela has been cut in half admitted by the World Bank. These are without doubt poverty, social improvement has been extreme in Venezuela, and there are many problems still. It's a wonderful change that's occurred since 2000. Tariq, please say, bring your intellect to bear.
Well, I think what one has to understand about Venezuela and Bolivia and Ecuador and Paraguay, that these are countries which were very polarized in terms of class and politics, and who had oligarchies in these countries who've been ruling for a long time. And when these oligarchies were defeated, naturally they were not happy. But you have to understand one thing about Venezuela. In particular, 95% of the media was opposed and hostile to Hugo Chavez. Despite that, he kept winning elections. And that's something worth thinking about. And that's what this film tries to explain to Americans and Europeans who essentially read or hear critical reports about Chavez, that there is another point of view. And this point of view is not always presented to Europeans and Americans, if you look at what the media coverage has been. So it's an attempt to correct the balance. Is there opposition to Chavez? Yes, and so what? In a democratic society, there is opposition to elected leaders. Not a big deal.